And welcome into the Make the Money and Run podcast. Vasu Vatapart, your solo host here for Monday, September 20th, 2021, a big NFL weekend. Major League Baseball in full swing now. 2 more weeks left in the regular season. 2 division races left, both wild cards in both leagues. Still yet undecided. 4 teams still to be debated in the National League for 1 spot, in the American League for 2 spots. College football, top 25 football, all over the place over the weekend. If you're a nervous point spreader, then you had some anxious moments going in this weekend as well, too. We're here every Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays, 3 o'clock Eastern on Mondays, 12 o'clock Eastern on Thursdays, and 1 Eastern on Friday. Friday, we are going to start a new segment. It's going to be the Friday baseball show as well, and we're going to have the Friday football show. So actually, we're going to start at 12:30 Eastern on Friday for the baseball show for a half an hour, and then Charlie O and I will have a 1-hour full football show to preview all the NCAA and NFL weekend that's gone on the previous week and the preview for the upcoming weekend. Don't forget to check us out on all our social media posts, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. By 6 o'clock Eastern every day, we'll have our later picks, updated news for games that are going off in the evening and at night for those of you on the East Coast, and for those of you later afternoon and evening games going on the West Coast as well, too. So 6 o'clock Eastern, check out all the social media posts as well. MTMAR podcast at gmail.com, Facebook, Instagram, for those of you that want to connect directly. If you're on Facebook Live or YouTube Live right now, thanks for joining us. You can always download, subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Google, iHeart, Spotify, and SoundCloud. We're sponsored by the Britannia Arms, celebrating 40 years of the best British pub and restaurant food and drink. Check them out at BritanniaArmsDeanza.com, 408-252-7262. Thanks to Britannia Arms for checking us out right now on YouTube Live and Facebook Live as well. All right, we'll get to the Major League Baseball in a bit. We'll get to the NCAA in a bit. Well, let's start out with the NFL. Holy cow, what happened in the NFL this weekend? First of all, underdogs are 9-6 in the week 2 games, with one tonight. That's Green Bay. That's an 11.5-point favorite. 11.5-point favorite for Green Bay. The total is 48 on Monday Night Football. Underdogs are 9-6 for the week, including Thursday night's game between the Giants and the Washington football team, a game the Giants probably should have won, but Washington did not cover. So you take that with the 12-4 of the underdogs from last week. Underdogs, taking the underdogs this year is about a 66% proposition, 2 out of 3, 21 out of 31 games so far. 15 games played this week, 16 games last week, so 21 out of 31 games, almost 70%. The underdogs have covered 9-6. We'll see if the Lions can cover 11.5 tonight. 48.5 the total. Aaron Rodgers, after the debacle last week against the Saints, 38-3, they lost in Jacksonville to the New Orleans Saints, who looked like world beaters. Jameis Winston had probably one of his best games ever. We'll get to the Saints in a second because they did not look good in week 2. The Detroit Lions, coming off that big comeback attempt on the 49ers. They were down 41-17 with about 5.5 minutes to go. Ended up getting 16 points to make it a 41-33. Another underdog winner, by the way. They screwed the 49ers bettors that had them at -9 last week. 41-33, the final score for the 49ers last week against the Detroit Lions. Very interesting matchup tonight. The Chicago Bears won their game, so they're 1-1. Nobody else has a win in the division. Green Bay, Detroit play tonight. The winner of the game tonight will be tied with the Bears at 1-1. The Minnesota Vikings are already 0-2. And looking at things happening there, they almost had a chance to upset the Arizona Cardinals yesterday. Let's break into the scores from yesterday. Remember, 9 out of 15 of the underdogs covered. So here we go. The Chicago Bears had a 20-3 lead late in the game. The Bengals made a run with 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. They lose 20-17 to my Bears, 1-1, leading the NFC North right now by a half a game, pending the outcome of Detroit and Green Bay tonight. Cleveland Browns are 1-1 after their near victory over Kansas City. They beat Houston 31-21, did not cover 13.5, 31-21. Cleveland over Houston. The Rams did not cover against the Colts. Getting a theme here, 27-24 at Indianapolis, -4 for the Rams. They win by 3. Colts with a late touchdown, late 2-point conversion, cover the number, but lose the game. They are 0-2 after losing to Seattle last week. You knew it was an aberration when they played the Steelers last week. Pittsburgh played well, but Buffalo came out and just doused Miami. Tagovailoa hurt in the game. They had to go with the backup there. 35-0 Buffalo over Miami. Buffalo now 1-1. Miami 1-1. New England 1-1. The Jets are 0-2 as Mac Jones faces off against his rookie quarterback, Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson, no touchdowns, 4 interceptions against the Patriots defense. 25-6, the Patriots over the Jets. A favorite covered there. Buffalo covered there. So there's your first 2 favorites. Mac Jones, no interceptions. I think 21 of 30 or something like that. I don't have the stats in front of me. Stats aren't important right now. It's who covered and who didn't cover. 25-6, the Patriots over the Jets. They're 1-1. The Jets 0-2. Already the tabloids going after Zach Wilson and the New York Jets franchise, a terminally ill franchise. I heard this morning on the radio. I think we're a long way to go from that. They've got some building to do, and Zach Wilson is the right guy. Robert Saleh, the right coach for the New York Jets. San Francisco 49ers looked awful in the first half. 3-0 down. They were able to go 97 yards right before the half to take a 7-3 lead. They hold the Philadelphia Eagles to a 17-11 win. They cover their 3 points in Philadelphia yesterday. They go to 2-0. Jimmy Garoppolo was as efficient as could be. By the way, I heard the Garoppolo stats, starting quarterback record, 24-8, 24 out of his 32 starts with the 49ers. That's a 750 winning percentage. 49ers fans, get off his back. Jimmy Garoppolo is a good quarterback. He will get you wins. That's what he does. 24-8, 17-11 the final score. San Francisco 49ers 2-0. One of the upsets of the day, one of the bigger upsets, especially after what Pittsburgh did yesterday, the Las Vegas Raiders get a 26-17 win at Pittsburgh, a 6-point underdog. The Raiders are 2-0. They lead the AFC West. They're tied with Denver for the top of the AFC West as Kansas City is 1-1. We'll tell you why in a second. And who's the other team in the West? And the Chargers are 1-1 after their loss to the Cowboys. We'll get to those in a second. Derek Carr looked good. They did not turn the ball over. I think 1 interception. But the Las Vegas Raiders, 26-17 over the Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh after playing on Monday night in an overtime game, flying to the East Coast early, playing an early game where West Coast teams do not usually have good success, but they did, and they beat Roethlisberger. The defense showed up. They were able to stop Roethlisberger's passing game, shut down those receivers. Najee Harris ran for a few yards, but he did not run for the number of yards that people thought he was going to get against a defense that has not been known to stop teams on the running game. That's the Las Vegas Raiders, 2-0, 26-17 over the Pittsburgh Steelers. Carolina Panthers, my favorite game of the day. The Carolina Panthers, 26-7 over the previously undefeated 1-0 New Orleans Saints. Jameis Winston, as good as he looked in week 1, he was awful in week 2. He was just awful. Sam Darnold, who got a bad run in New York, comes down to Carolina. Of course, when you have Christian McCaffrey in your backfield, all good things can happen there. Robbie Anderson, my fantasy football receiver, had a couple of catches, didn't do as much, but their tight end, Greg Zalestra, he's replacing Greg Olsen, the recently retired Greg Olsen. That's in the Fox broadcast booth now with Kevin Burkhardt. 26-7, Carolina, the victory. 3.5-point underdog. They get the victory. They're 2-0 in the NFC South. 2-0 for the Carolina Panthers. I like Carolina coming in the year. I like Sam Darnold coming in the year. So far, he has not done me wrong, and they've covered twice. They beat the Jets last week in what was called the revenge Darnold game against the Jets. Not really a revenge game. It was only week 1. But in week 2, the Carolina defense shut down Jameis Winston. Kamara was not able to run, and they could not get their passing game going. And Jameis Winston, who had a big week in week 1 with 4 touchdowns, did not have the opportunity to set his feet, throw the ball around at all. They got a touchdown in the third quarter. But other than that, it started out 17-0 Carolina. Carolina, 3.5-point underdog. Their defense outstanding. They allowed 14 points to the Jets, 7 to the high-powered offense of the Saints. 26-7 Carolina, the victory, covering the 3.5. The Arizona Cardinals are 2-0 in the NFC West. They played lousy, though, yesterday. The Minnesota Vikings are not a good team. Dalvin Cook is a good player. Kirk Cousins had a good game, but they are not a good team. And the fact that Arizona could not cover 3.5 against the Vikings shows that there's still some issues on defense for the Cardinals. Kyler Murray still trying to make decisions in the pocket, doesn't know when to run, doesn't know when to throw, still stares down receivers. He had interceptions in that game. that cost him. One was a pick six by their middle linebacker, Minnesota's middle linebacker, and then another one later in the game where he threw one down in positive territory. We're not able to get any points out of it. Any one of those field goals that they could have gotten that were turnovers would have covered for Arizona, would have been great for me. 34-32, another underdog covers the Minnesota Vikings. They were 3.5-point underdogs. Tampa Bay keeps rolling on. This is the Tampa Bay we thought was going to have happen in week one against Dallas. Too many turnovers last week. They should have won by 20 against Dallas. That's neither here nor there for that purpose. But 48-25 over the Atlanta Falcons. Give the Falcons credit, their offense credit. Matt Ryan got them going in week two. But their defense, awful, awful, awful. Gronkowski had 2 touchdowns. Mike Evans had 2 touchdowns. Brady, 4 touchdowns overall. 25 points the defense gave up. So to the 29 that they gave up to the Dallas, 54 points in 2 games. That's not a Super Bowl champion defensive team right now that has all their starters. But they did cover the 13.5, 48-25 Tampa Bay over the Atlanta Falcons. Tampa Bay 2-0 along with those Carolina Panthers. Right now, the Saints at 1-1 and the Falcons at 0-2 in the NFC South. Dallas got a late field goal, a game-winning field goal by Greg Zuerlein. 55 yards out, he made it. 20-17 the final. Dallas beats the Chargers. If you had the money line on the Cowboys around plus 160, like I know a couple of people did, you ended up screaming, jumping for joy. 20-17, the Cowboys 1-1 after their near victory over the previously mentioned Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 20-17 over the Chargers. The Chargers 1-1 now. Justin Herbert stared down a couple of receivers. They had a chance to move the ball down. Bad penalties also took place. Taunting penalties by a veteran like Keenan Allen certainly did not help. 20-17, Dallas, the victory over the Chargers on the road in Los Angeles at SoFi. First game for the Chargers in front of fans at SoFi Stadium. A great game by Dallas and the Chargers, both at 1-1, looking to go upward and onward. The Chargers, I think they have Kansas City next week. I could be wrong, but we'll get those schedules out on Thursday when Charlie O joins me. The game of the day in Seattle, Tennessee down 24-6, middle of the third quarter. Derrick Henry was not going to have 2 bad games in a row. This was my other favorite game. Them and Carolina were my 2 favorite games of the day. Tennessee +6. If you got it to +6.5 based on how Tennessee played last week against Arizona, you got a bargain. Tennessee 33-30 over the Seattle Seahawks. The Titans are now 1-1 in the AFC South. The Seattle Seahawks, the only team in the NFC West with a loss. The Rams, the 49ers, and the Cardinals all won 33-30. Tennessee with the victory, 6-point cover. Derrick Henry, who did not do anything against Arizona last week. Their entire offense did not do anything last week, but they were able to come back. He had a 60-yard touchdown run in this game. He was nearly 140 yards. Tennessee 33-30 over Seattle in overtime. And the game of the night, the second game of the night, the game of the night, Baltimore Ravens put a loss on Patrick Mahomes. How unique is this? Patrick Mahomes had never lost in September in his 4 years in the league. Never even thrown an interception in his 4 years in the league. 36-35, Baltimore with a game winner at the end. 36-35, Baltimore gets the win. They even their record to 1-1 in the AFC North. They're right there with Pittsburgh. Cincinnati is 1-1, and Cleveland is 1-1. So everybody 1-1 in the AFC North. It's going to be a knock 'em out, drag 'em out, bloodbath division this year in the AFC North. And finally, Baltimore, as we said, 36-35. The Kansas City Chiefs are 1-1. They and the Chargers, the only 2 teams that are 1-1. Denver and the Las Vegas Raiders are 2-0. Again, the game tonight on Monday night. The Green Bay Packers, 11.5. Is Aaron Rodgers going to bring his team back tonight? 11.5 points over a Detroit defense that lost Jeff Okuba for the rest of the year. Their defensive back, their defense did not play very well against the 49ers last week. Green Bay's defense did not play very well last week either. The total 48.5 seems low. I would think the over would probably be the way to go. Check us out at 6 Eastern, 3 o'clock on the West Coast for our Pacific time and Eastern time late game news and picks for the Monday afternoon, Monday evening games, both on the East Coast and the West Coast. 7 baseball games to go tonight. 8 baseball games to go tonight. We actually have one starting in about a half hour as well. But Green Bay, 11.5, 48.5, Monday Night Football. Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers looking to do a quick turnaround based on what happened in Jacksonville against the Saints last week. And Detroit had some momentum in the fourth quarter. And the Lions, they really like Jared Goff. and he played well in the fourth quarter. Granted, the 49ers gave up a lot of yards when the game was out of control, but then it got to be really close, 41-33 with a chance to win it. They were in positive territory, could not get that fourth down pass, and they go down in defeat, but they did cover. As you all know, the 49ers, you bet on the 49ers -9 last week. You know the Lions did cover with that 2-point conversion in that 41-33 loss. All right, when we come back in 30 seconds, college football, top 25 teams in action, also breakdown of the conferences, big games this weekend, some upsets, and maybe a couple of surprises when we come back on the college football part of the show. The Make the Money and Run podcast, sponsored by the Britannia Arms of Cupertino. Check them out at BritanniaArmsDeanza.com, 408-252-7262. Thanks to everybody on Facebook, including Taylor right now, for jumping on with us as well. Don't forget to check out the Britannia Arms in Cupertino. They're celebrating 40 years of the best British food and restaurants, food and drink. BritanniaArmsDeanza.com, 408-252-7262. All right, in 30 seconds, the college football recap, a preview of this week in Major League Baseball, as well as the games from the weekend. The wildcard races are tight. The division races, 2 of the 6 are still going, and the wildcard races in both leagues are still going strong. Back in 30 seconds, the Make the Money and Run podcast. Vasu Vadaparty, your solo host today. Thanks for joining us on Facebook Live and YouTube Live. Welcome back. Make the Money and Run podcast for Monday, September 20th, 2021. Actually, you know what today is? I know it probably doesn't hit to a lot of our crowd, but today is the opening of the brand new TV season. So check out the networks and check out all the new shows. I'm actually looking forward to seeing some of them tonight, but not until Monday Night Football is over. And that's why you have DVRs, and that's why you have on demand to check out your TV shows anytime you want. What TV shows do you watch that are not sports? Email us and podcast and get us on the podcast on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Don't forget, we have the latest news and also our selections for the day, our later selections for the day, 6 Eastern on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can email us at mtmarpodcast@gmail.com, Facebook, and Instagram. I'm Vasu Vadaparty, your solo host. We're sponsored by the Britannia Arms of Cupertino, Silicon Valley's longest-serving British pub and restaurant, celebrating 40 years in Silicon Valley of the best food and drink. BritanniaArmsDeanza.com, 408-252-7262. Check them out. They are great. They will also cater for your office parties, and they will also set up your group events as well on location. All right, we talked about the NFL Monday Night Football tonight, the Green Bay Packers, the Detroit Lions. The line on that game, as we said, we'll put it up one more time because we know a lot of you are interested in it. The Packers at 0-1, 11.5-point favorites with Aaron Rodgers. 48.5 the total against the Detroit Lions, who scored 33 points last week, 16 of those in garbage time. Their defense was not very good, and now they're going to be missing defensive players against Aaron Rodgers. It might not be a good matchup for the Detroit Lions tonight, but I got a feeling the way the underdogs have been covering. Remember, the underdogs are 9-6 for week 2. They were 12-4 last week, so you're looking at 21-10. The underdogs versus the favorites. And one game to go tonight. We'll get to the over-under totals on Thursday when we start previewing Thursday Night Football and the weekend for college football as well. Speaking of college football, let's hit it. The NCAA, Arkansas 45-10 was one of the, let's go to the other top 25 games we have here. The bigger ones were right here. Alabama, the number 1 team in the country, did not cover 14.5. They had to hold off Florida on a 2-point conversion. 31-29, they get the victory. Alabama 2-0. Did you really think they were going to lose? But Florida gave them a game. 14.5-point underdogs. All the credit goes to Dan Mullen and the Florida Gators. There are no moral victories, especially when you play in the SEC conference, but Florida played outstanding in that game, and that was one of my favorite college games of the weekend, taking the 14.5 as it turned out. It was 14 for a lot of the weekend, but it went up to 14.5 because Alabama, all they do is just cover. But I just had a feeling Florida was going to play this weekend. 31-29 proves me right. Georgia 40-14 over South Carolina. They did not cover the -30. Won there on South Carolina. 27-point victory for Georgia. They remain undefeated. They remain Alabama's top competition. Oklahoma in the Big 12 for future SEC team. They hold off Nebraska 23-16 in what used to be a big-time rival in the Big 12 when Nebraska was in the Big 12. Nebraska played their defense really well on Saturday, looked a lot better than I even thought they gave them credit for. 22.5-point favorites for Oklahoma, nowhere near covering. Oregon beat Stony Brook 48-7. Charlie O had the over on that, 52.5. Oregon beat Stony Brook coming off their victory last weekend against Ohio State, where they were 14.5-point underdog. Iowa, by the skin of their teeth, covers the 22 points. They beat Kent 30-7. Clemson 14-8 over Georgia Tech. They were favored heavy as well, too. They had a big rain delay in the middle of that game. Hope everybody survived the rainstorm there because they had a delay for about an hour and a half for 2 hours. 14-8 over Georgia Tech. Texas A&M beats New Mexico State 34-0. They cover the 29-point spread. Cincinnati covers 3.5. It didn't look good for about 2.5 quarters against Indiana. Michael Penix Jr., terrible mistakes in the third and fourth quarter. Desmond Ridder, if you haven't heard of Desmond Ridder and the Cincinnati Bearcats, check them out. They're a top 5 team, in my opinion, 38-24 over Indiana. Ohio State still gave up points, did not cover the 25 against Tulsa, 41-20. Penn State, the big game of the day against Auburn, 28-20 over Auburn. They covered the 4.5 or 5, depending on when you got it. I got it at 4.5 right before kickoff. Penn State, the late touchdown, and the defense, in spite of all the officiating that took place. I mean, forgetting a down, that's one thing. They forgot third down on one of Penn State's drives, and it could have cost them. But Auburn still could not come up with a big place toward the end. 28-20 Penn State. They cover the 4.5. Notre Dame beats Purdue 27-13. They cover the 4.5. They cover the 7 over Purdue. They beat them by 14. Next week they have Wisconsin in Chicago at Soldier Field. I think they are going to color the river green. I believe that what they do when Notre Dame comes into town to play their annual game at Soldier Field. The game's going to be on Fox, noon Eastern, 11 o'clock Central Time. Out there in Chicago, if you're a Notre Dame fan in Chicago, there might be one or two. Go out and see Notre Dame and Wisconsin play at Soldier Field. I hear it's a great experience to go see that game. 27-13 over Purdue. They cover the 7. They remain undefeated. The upset of the day, Fresno State, 40-37 over what I thought was a really good UCLA team. But Fresno State, who I also thought was good, they played better. They got a touchdown late in the fourth quarter to upset the UCLA Bruins, number 20, I believe, in the country coming into the week. But Fresno State, with the late touchdown, able to take the 40-37 victory. Iowa State over UNLV 48-3 after their loss against in-state rival Iowa. They come back and crush that 32-point spread at UNLV 48-3. West Virginia, another big game against their rival Virginia Tech. Glad to see that they're going to have that rivalry renewed. West Virginia, big lead early. Virginia Tech came back in the fourth quarter, had a chance to win it. 27-21, West Virginia covers -2 in that game. And Coastal Carolina, 28-25 victory over Buffalo. They were a heavy favorite. They were a 14-point favorite. Charlie O had them as one of the big picks over the weekend. Buffalo plus 14, so they came through. And Ole Miss, 61-21, covered the spread, went over the 76. They get the victory, 61-21. And in a mild upset, BYU 27-17 over Arizona State. Arizona State had some big flair coming into the season, and yet they have not been able to put it together yet. COVID issues and some internal issues going on there as well too. Moving on, top 25 games. Arkansas 45-10. UNC beat Virginia 59-39. That game was close for a while, but Sam Howell and North Carolina realized that they're a pretty good team. They might be the competition for Clemson in the ACC. They get a 20-point victory. They cover 7.5 for Virginia. Michigan State in one of the upsets of the day, 6.5-point underdogs at Miami in Florida, 38-17. They were down early in the game. They came back. They ended up winning. They ended up blowing them out, 38-17 in Miami. They cover the 6.5 points. They win the game outright. And then Michigan 3-0 might be playing as well as they've been playing in the last number of years for Jim Harbaugh, 63-10 over Northern Illinois. Let's check some of the other scores in some of the conferences. Wake Forest in the ACC, they beat Florida State. They're 0-3, 35-14. Duke beat Northwestern 30-23. I thought Northwestern would be better. And Boston College beats Temple 28-3. They cover 14 points as well. Big 12, Kansas State was an underdog at home to Reno, 38-17. Reno does not come through on the road. They lose to Kansas State 38-17. They beat Stanford in game 1 of the year. They're on a roll right now. The Big 12 looking to be pretty strong defensively. Baylor beat Kansas 45-7. They were a 14-point favorite. Oklahoma State goes into Boise. They were down 20-7. They got a turnover late after scoring a touchdown to make it 20-14. They got a touchdown right before the half and then nothing in the second half. Both defenses played great. 21-0. Oklahoma State with the road victory covering the 3.5 over Boise State. They end up covering 21-20 and winning outright. They're a factor in the Big 12 as well, too. Spencer Sanders had himself a pretty good game running the ball. Didn't throw the ball very well, but their running backs and their running game just shut down Boise, and Hank Bachmeier was not able to get anything going in the second half after he had it going in the first half. And then Texas, 58-0 over Rice, an easy cover. Rice not very good. Texas in the Big 12 getting everybody's competition as a future SEC team as well. Them and Oklahoma going to the SEC as well, too. In the Big 10, Minnesota goes to Colorado. Early morning game in Colorado. They shut out the Buffaloes 30-0. Abraham out for the year for Minnesota with the running back situation, but they were able to go into Colorado. And don't sleep on Rutgers. If they're a small favorite or even a slight underdog, look at Rutgers, 45-13 in the Big 10. They're going to give the Big 10 competition this year, 45-13. They're not as good as Ohio State or Michigan, but don't take them lightly. Rutgers has got something going on there in the Big 10. 45-13, their victory. Moving on to the Pac-10, Oregon State with a 42-0 victory. USC, 7.5-point favorite at Washington State. They were down 14-0. I had USC minus 7.5. Jackson Dart comes in the second half after Slovis goes out with an injury. You'll wonder if Dart's going to start because they rattled off 45 in a row and ended up easily beating Washington State 45-14. 7.5-point spread for USC. USC right there before the UCLA loss. USC and UCLA right there to compete with Oregon for a Pac-12 championship. But you have to think USC has the advantage now. Cal beat 42-30 over Sacramento State. University of Washington 52-3 win over Arkansas State. 3 overtimes it took for San Diego State, who was very underrated, to beat the University of Utah. An 8-point underdog at home. San Diego State, a 33-31, 3 overtime game. They get the victory. They cover the 8, win outright. Stanford goes to Vanderbilt after beating USC last week in Pac-12 play. Vanderbilt, a 12-point underdog. Stanford, 12-point favorite. They end up winning by 18. They cover. Stanford may be on the rise now. Watch out for Stanford in the Pac-12 North. Northern Arizona upsets University of Arizona 21-19. That's an underdog upset. That's an outright win for the Pac-12 and Northern Arizona University, NAU, 21-19 over Arizona. Arizona struggling this year. The SEC, Kentucky with a 28-23 win. Tennessee got a big win, 56-0. Memphis, the game of the day, 3-point underdog at home to Mississippi State, who generally has a stingy defense. Mississippi State, Memphis, you got to see how this game ended. An interception return for a touchdown by Memphis with no time left to upset Mississippi State, not only cover the 3 points as a dog, but also win the game outright, 31-29, and LSU with a big 49-21 victory in SEC competition. The American Conference, we talked about Cincinnati already. Don't underestimate Cincinnati as a top 5 team. SMU got a big comeback win, 39-37. ECU beat Marshall, 42-38, 9-point underdog, another underdog win. Houston, looking forward to going to the Big 12. They had a 45-0 victory. And South Florida with a 38-17 victory on the road as well, too, in the American Conference. The Midwestern Conference, the Mountain West Conference, 45-12. Wyoming, when they're less than a touchdown favorite, they seem to cover. Check out Wyoming in following weeks in terms of covering 4, 5, 6-point spreads because they were on top of their game on Saturday, and they cruised 45-12. 22-6, Mountain West game. Cal State, Utah. Let me see if I got this right here. Meanwhile, Utah State beat Air Force 49-45. Oh, Colorado State. I'm sorry. Colorado State with a 22-6 victory. 22-6 victory for Colorado State. They are in the Mountain West conversation as far as the bottom half of the team, but you can never underestimate. They beat Toledo on the road. I believe they were an underdog to Toledo. Toledo was a 14.5-point favorite. Colorado State defense came back to total 59, nowhere near the total. Utah State 9-point underdog to Air Force, 49-45. Back and forth, up and down the field they go. 49-45. I feel like the announcer from Varsity Blues. Look at him go in his singy-songy voice. That's the way Air Force and Utah State was. 49-45. Utah State with the underdog victory, the outright victory. Air Force has to get back on defense in order to compete in the Mountain West. That's a Mountain West loss. My Spartans, the other Spartans, 17-13. They go late night to Hawaii. They did not cover the 8-point spread. The game was set at 61.5 on the over, 63.5 on the over. But San Jose State, behind Nick Starkel, comes back with a 17-13 victory. Good defense in the second half by the Spartans. Were able to hold down Cheverino and that potent Hawaii offense. Everybody thought it was going to go up and down. Late night in Hawaii, 9:30 on the West Coast, 12:30 on the East Coast Sunday morning when this game started. But San Jose State continues their run in the Mountain West, defending champions in the Mountain West, 17-13 over Hawaii. All right, in 30 seconds, Charlie O and I will be back on Thursday with the preview for the NFL and NCAA this coming weekend. But in 30 seconds, when we come back, the Major League Baseball recap of the weekend, the pennant races, the wild cards, it's all chaos right now. The Make the Money and Run podcast, Fosse Vada Party, your solo host. Don't forget to check out our podcast posts on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, 6 Eastern, 3 o'clock on the Pacific for the latest news and our selections for later games as well, too. Back in 30 seconds with the baseball recap, sponsored by the Britannia Arms of Cupertino. Check them out at BritanniaArms.com, 408-252-7262. Fosse Vada Party with the Make the Money and Run podcast for Monday, September 20th, 2021. September 21st, the first day of fall tomorrow. So hopefully you got everything you wanted out of summer. I know we had a lot of heat in California. I know the East Coast experienced a lot of heat. We had some fire issues out here as well, too. Hopefully everybody is safe and sound as we move into the football months, the playoff baseball months, NCAA going on as well. We're here every Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays, 3 Eastern. Noon Eastern on Thursdays, and there you have it, 9:30 West Coast time, 12:30 on the East Coast. The first half hour will be the Friday baseball show, recapping the entire week of Major League Baseball as we head down to the last 2 weeks of MLB regular season. The playoffs will start on October 3rd. If we have a game 163, the wildcard games will be Tuesday the 4th and Wednesday the 5th, with the division round starting on Thursday and Friday of that week. If there are any ties for divisions or wildcards, they will be played on that Monday and or Tuesday, depending on how many teams are left in the wild card. Check out our social media, as we said, by 6 Eastern every day. V Party Sports on Twitter, Instagram. You can catch Charlie O and I on Facebook. Don't forget our intern, Nick Robinson, and his unique angles and wager angles in terms of player props and everything that he does with that as well. MTMAR Podcast for all of it on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can email us at mtmarpodcast@gmail.com, Facebook and Instagram as well. We're sponsored by the Britannia Arms of Cupertino, Silicon Valley's longest-serving British pub and restaurant, celebrating 40 years in Silicon Valley of the best British food and drink you can have in Silicon Valley. BritanniaArmsDienza.com, 408-252-7262. Let's go over the baseball from the weekend. First of all, let's put the lines up there. We do have one game going off at 4:10. Doesn't really have much in the playoff implications, but it's game one of a doubleheader. The Kansas City Royals going into Cleveland. Cleveland, 9 games back of the wild card in the loss column, probably too far out with only about 12 or 13 to go. I think I saw the magic number for the wild card at 3 for the Indians, so that's going to probably be done as well, too. We'll start with the American League. Game one right there, Tristan McKenzie, who's had a good year as a rookie, is 156, 7 the total. Remember, it's a 7-inning game, so that's why the total is lower than what it would be in normal American League games. Brady Singer, the kid out of Stanford, he's going to pitch for Kansas City. He had a lead against the A's last week, but the A's came back and beat them 2 out of 3. They're still in the wild card race, but Brady Singer is plus 146. That is my pick for the early picks. The Kansas City Royals, I got them at plus 141. Take the Royals, plus 141 in a 7-inning game against the Indians. soon to be the Guardians. 4:10 Eastern, 1:10 on the Pacific Coast. That is in 40 minutes right now when that game will start. 35 minutes at 4:10 Eastern, 1:10 Pacific on the shores of Cleveland, Ohio. The Chicago White Sox magic number is down to about 4, I think. 2:30 with Carlos Rodon at Detroit against Matt Manning. Don't underestimate Matt Manning. They just beat the Brewers 2 out of 3 last week at home, and they're at home right now against the division leader. Matt Manning, one of the good young pitchers for the Detroit Tigers. He and Casey Mize going to lead them in 2022. Yankees, they lost 2 out of 3 to the Indians, 250 their line. Nestor Cortez, AJ Alexy pitching for the Texas Rangers, 8.5 the total in New York tonight. The Toronto Blue Jays favored on the road at Tampa. Why do you say? 7.5 the total. Robbie Ray, the all-star pitcher for Toronto, been their best pitcher, even though Hyun-Jin Ryu has pitched on that team. He's been mediocre at best. In fact, he lost on Friday to the Minnesota Twins. He gave up 4 home runs on Friday night. But Robbie Ray goes up against Shane Baz. This is one of the Tampa Bay specials. You've heard of the Philly special in football, but this is the Tampa Bay special. They're the ones who started the openers, the bullpen games. Shane Baz going for Kevin Cash and the Tampa Bay Rays. They are 5 away from clinching the American League East. They probably will clinch the East. Boston, New York, and Toronto too far out in the American League East. That sets up the wild card setting for them. And then later on, Houston, 7 is their magic number. They are going to go to Los Angeles. Framber Valdez, who did not make a start on Friday, will go up against Jaime Barria and the Angels. 205.9 the total for the Houston Astros in Anaheim tonight. A huge matchup in Oakland tonight. The A's only 2 games back in the wild card. Start Sean Manaea against Tyler Anderson and the Seattle Mariners, who are 4 back. They had a tough weekend in Kansas City. They lost 2 out of 3 to the Royals. Kansas City swung the bats well against them. Salvador Perez having a big year. I know he's on a last-place team or a fourth-place team in the American League Central, but I hope the baseball writers give him some MVP votes because he's on the verge of breaking a 50-year-old record. Johnny Bench, most home runs by a catcher in a season. Salvador Perez has 45 home runs. Oh, by the way, he leads the American League in RBIs at 112. So Sean Manaea, Tyler Anderson, Oakland, Seattle. Seattle 2 back of Oakland in the wild card race. Oakland in 3rd place out of the wild card setting behind the Yankees. Toronto and Boston right now tied for that. We'll get to the actual standings in a second, but that's the American League. Let's hit the National League. Not a lot of games in the National League. Cincinnati Reds struggling right now. They lost 2 out of 3 to the Pittsburgh Pirates. They did win on Friday night. They lost 2 in a row, Saturday and Sunday. They're 4 games above 500. They have Vladimir Gutierrez, one of the better rookies in the National League, 155 against Dylan Peters for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Some reason the Pirates give them trouble, but Cincinnati really needs to be in this race. The wild card race starting to lengthen out as St. Louis is getting hot. Miami, Washington, Luzardo, and Eric Fetty doesn't mean anything unless you have a wager on it. And if you have a wager on it, it all pays the same. Jesus Luzardo has pitched well. Miami at home, a very good proposition. Washington, Eric Fetty has had a good year for them, but he gives up a lot of runs, and so you got to think that Washington is in a little bit of trouble here with Luzardo pitching well. Milwaukee trying to close out the National League Central. They're 200 favorites with Freddie Peralta against the Cardinals, who are trying to widen that second wild card spot. They're 4 games up on 3 teams. We'll get to that in a second. Freddie Peralta and Jake Woodford. Woodford, who had a big game against the Mets last week, did not get the victory in the game, but Tyler O'Neill in the 8th inning of that Wednesday game hit the 2-run bomb to give the Cardinals the lead. They ended up winning that game in extra innings as the Cardinals bullpen did not hold the lead. Javier Baez with a home run in the bottom of the 9th to tie the game, but the Cardinals ended up winning in extra innings. St. Louis minus 200. They're pretty much cruising right now is Milwaukee. Milwaukee minus 200. They're pretty much cruising right now. So do you want the Cardinals, who have everything to play for it? Every game counts. Do you want to take them at about $1.80 underdog? I would think that might be a way to go, but we'll have all those picks 6 Eastern on our social media posts. Atlanta with Oscar Anoa and Humberto Mejia at Arizona, who's played better. Arizona 100-loss team, though. 9.5 the total in that game. Atlanta 188. They just lost 2 out of 3 to San Francisco over the weekend. They have a slight lead over Philadelphia, who lost on Sunday as well, too. Philadelphia off today. As we go into the Monday schedule, we'll preview some of the Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday games this week before we come back on Thursday. All right, let's get to how it looks in both leagues right now. San Francisco Giants won 2 out of 3 against Atlanta. The Dodgers won 2 out of 3 against Cincinnati, winning the last two. They are exactly where they started going into Friday. The Dodgers 1 game back in the NL West. The Giants go to San Diego tomorrow for 3. The Dodgers go to the Rockies for 3. So we'll see what happens this week. Giants finished 6 of their last 12 against the San Diego Padres. I believe the Dodgers have 6 of their last 12 against the Rockies as well, too. The win by Atlanta yesterday and the loss by Philadelphia puts Atlanta 3 up in the National League East. The Mets are too far back. The Mets, I believe, are 7 back right now. Let's look at that right now. 7. Yeah, they're 7 back in the National League East. Probably too far to go. The magic number is 9 for Atlanta over the New York Mets. The magic number is 13 over Philadelphia. The Atlanta Braves 3 up. They could be cruising to the division. They have Arizona this week, as we said, for a number of games. Don't know if it's 3 or 4. We'll check it out maybe on a later post. But the wild card scenario in the National League, the first wild card is sewn up. It's either going to be the Giants or the Dodgers. That first spot in the wild card is clinched. Nobody can take the number 1 spot away from either San Francisco or Los Angeles. St. Louis just swept San Diego over the weekend. Fernando Tatis, Manny Machado getting into it in the dugout. It was caught on microphones. Jace Tingler trying to come up with excuses, saying how much they care. There's frustration. Well, when you're a bad road team and you're just not as good as your hype was going to be, you'll lose 3 straight to a pretty good St. Louis team, but not a great St. Louis team. Now you're 4 back. The Reds have lost 2 in a row. They're 4 back. The Phillies lost yesterday after taking 2 out of 3 from the Mets. They're 4 back. So St. Louis has widened that lead up a little bit. 4 up on 3 teams in the National League wild card for that second spot. In the American League, Tampa Bay, Houston, Chicago, races are close to over. We said 7 for Tampa, 5 for Tampa, the magic number, 10 for Houston, I believe. Let's look at it right now. Let's get it accurate. 155. That is 8 for Houston. Chicago, the White Sox have a magic number of 4, and Tampa Bay is 6. So 6, 8, and 4. Tampa Bay, Houston, Chicago, magic numbers. Races are close to over. All they got to do is just maintain. Boston tied with Toronto in the wild card. Boston swept Baltimore over the weekend. Toronto had a tough series this last weekend with Minnesota, but they did manage to win the last 2 games against Minnesota. Boston 86-65, Toronto 84-65. They've got 2 games to make up. Both are on a roll. Boston's won 5 in a row. The Toronto Blue Jays have won 2 in a row. The Yankees, 2 games back, 83-67. They are a game and a half back in the standings, but they're 2 back in the loss column, which is where you look behind Toronto and Boston. All these teams can still catch the number 1 spot in the American League, by the way. Seattle, 80-69. They are 4 back in the wild card. They are 4 back of the number of the 1 and 2 spots in the wild card. 65 losses for Boston and Toronto. Seattle, 69 losses. They may have done themselves in by losing 2 out of 3 to Kansas City. The Oakland A's swept the Angels over the weekend. They have 67 losses. They're tied with the Yankees for 3rd. 2 back of Boston and Toronto. A huge series in Oakland this week between the Seattle Mariners and the Oakland A's. Oakland trying to keep pace with New York, Toronto, and Boston. In fact, let me see if Boston or Toronto are playing. The Yankees are playing the Rangers tonight. Toronto is playing at Tampa Bay. The Red Sox are off. They will be – where will they be? They will be at home hosting the Mets, a big series for the Mets if they want to maintain their wild card status. The Mets, I think, are 8 back, if I want to say right. I could be wrong, but let's find out. Yeah, they're 8 back in the wild card. So that this weekend series against the Phillies might have proved the nail in the coffin for them as well. 8 back in the wild card and 7 back in the loss column against the Braves in the East. So maybe they can be spoilers against the Red Sox as well, too. But Seattle, Oakland, huge matchup in Oakland, 4-game series. Thursday will be a day game. Chance for Seattle to maybe take 3 out of 4. They took 2 out of 3 from Oakland last time they were in town. They were on a roll at that point, but not sure if they're going to be able to catch up with the A's or the Yankees or the Blue Jays this week. Toronto has Tampa. The Yankees have Texas. And let's see, Boston, Toronto. Oakland has Seattle. And there you have it for the American League as well. All right, when we come back, we'll have our pick segment. We'll break down the games for the Monday Night Football, as well as our picks for the afternoon. Don't forget, our latest picks will be out later, as well at 6 Eastern on every social media outlet. Thanks to the Britannia Arms for celebrating 40 years and being our sponsor. the best British pub, food, and drink you'll find in Silicon Valley. BritanniaArmsDianza.com, 408-252-7262. Vasu Vadaparty, your solo host here. Back in 30 seconds to wrap it up with some picks and some previews for Monday Night Football and some of the baseball tonight as well. This is the Make the Money and Run podcast for September 20th, 2021. Welcome back, Vasu Vadaparty, your solo host, Charlie on assignment. Intern Nick will be back with us on Friday as well for the Friday football show. Don't forget, on Fridays, we're starting early now, 9:30 on the West Coast, 12:30 on the East Coast. We're going to have a half-hour baseball show before we get into our Friday football show to preview the entire NCAA weekend, review Thursday night football in both NFL and college, as well as some Friday night college football. But the Saturday and Sunday, the big slate for college football and the NFL, week 3 for the NFL, week 5 for college football. 9:30 on the West Coast, 12:30 on the East Coast on Fridays. Mondays at 3 Eastern, where we are right now. Thursdays at noon Eastern. Facebook and YouTube Live. Thanks to everybody on Facebook and YouTube Live for checking us out as well. You can download and subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. Don't forget, every day at 6 Eastern. During the week, we have our latest updates and also later picks that we have. Charlie O texted me. He will have picks for us at 6 o'clock Eastern as well, as intern Nick Robinson will have his picks as well. On Saturdays, we go at 11 Eastern, 8 a.m. on our social media posts for picks for college football, MLB baseball. With playoffs coming up, we're going to have some baseball picks as well, too. And on Sundays, we go at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. on the same social media pages for our NFL picks and any baseball on Sunday that we like as well. Thanks to everybody for joining us on Facebook and YouTube. Thanks to Britannia Arms, celebrating 40 years in Silicon Valley. 40 years of the best food and drink for a British pub and restaurant. BritanniaArmsDianza.com, 408-252-7262. All right, in Major League Baseball this week, Royals, Indians, we talked about the Reds have a huge series with the Pirates this week. The White Sox trying to close out the American League Central. They're visiting the Detroit Tigers. The Orioles and Phillies, actually, I take that back. The Orioles and Phillies are playing. That was an interleague game. Let me go back here to where it was. I had an interleague game. There it is. Ranger Suarez going for the Philadelphia Phillies, 205, minus 205 against the Baltimore Orioles, who just got done being swept by Boston. Ranger Suarez against John Means in the interleague matchup. Philadelphia only 3 back of Atlanta in the National League East. They are 4 back in the wildcard race. They're tied with San Diego and Cincinnati, 4 back of the St. Louis Cardinals, but only 3 back in the loss column of the Atlanta Braves. The Atlanta Braves, who just lost 2 out of 3 to San Francisco. They have the day off. They are in Arizona tonight for a 3-game series as well, too. So a lot of the teams that are in the pennant races are in. The Giants and Dodgers are off today. That's kind of where my mindset is usually all the time. But Philadelphia, we didn't want to exclude you. We didn't want to exclude Baltimore. John Means, your best pitcher going tonight, trying to help the Atlanta Braves. Minus 205 for Ranger Suarez, the total 8 in a National League Park. The second game not up yet for Cleveland, Kansas City. That'll be a 7-inning game as well. That's game 2 of a doubleheader. But the Rangers and Orioles, the last game on the board. We talked about the games that we had: Pirates, Reds, Nationals, Marlins, Orioles, Phillies, Rangers, Yankees, Blue Jays, Rays, Cardinals, Brewers, a big matchup there. Milwaukee trying to close out the Central, hurt the Cardinals' chances to retain that second spot in the wild card. The Astros trying to close out the American League West. The big series in Oakland, the Seattle Mariners and the Oakland A's. Tyler Anderson, Sean Manaea going tonight, and the Braves and the D-backs as well in Arizona, 9:40 Eastern on that game as well, too. Don't forget, you can check us out every Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays. Also, check us out at 6 Eastern on all our social media posts for the latest updates on news. We'll have the Cleveland, Kansas City lineup, Green Bay, Detroit. We'll have any further injury reports or news for the football game. 11.5, the line still stands, and 48.5. So I'm going to give you my 2 picks right now. I'm going to give you the football pick right now. But don't forget to check out, again, our social media posts at 6 Eastern, 3.5, 3 o'clock on the West Coast as well for latest news and late game selections as well. I'm going to go with the Kansas City Royals. In about 20 minutes, they're going to start game 1 of their doubleheader against the Cleveland Indians. Brady Singer's a Stanford product, not having a great year, but I got a good feeling about him. He had a lead against the A's. He's 4-10 with a 4.85 ERA against Tristan McKenzie, 5-6. He of the one hitter against the Detroit Tigers, nearly perfect, 4.28 ERA. The over-under 7 in that game, if you like that game. But I like Kansas City at plus 141, a chance to get an early underdog win. The Royals been hitting the ball well lately. They've got Salvador Perez playing. They've got their bullpen's been pretty good. So I got a feeling they may go into Cleveland. They give the Indians a tough time at Progressive Field. So I got a shot at an underdog win with the Kansas City Royals at Cleveland. And tonight, Monday Night Football. Dun, 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 dun. Green Bay Packers, Detroit Lions. Both teams at 0-1. The winner will be tied with the Bears for first place in the NFC North. The loser will be tied with the Vikings at 0-2. Green Bay coming off a horrible loss against the New Orleans Saints last week, 38-3. They were a 4-point favorite. New Orleans trampled all over them. Of course, New Orleans lost this weekend to the Carolina Panthers. They were a 3.5-point favorite at Carolina. Carolina stomped on them. Detroit coming off their opening game loss against the 49ers, in which they were down 41-17. But Jared Goff finally getting some traction with his receivers. This whole week they talked about how Jared Goff was getting traction with his receivers. DeAndre Swift, a really good running back. Defensively, they have to stop Aaron Rodgers. I don't know if they can or not. So tonight, I am going with the over 48.5 with the Detroit Lions and Green Bay Packers. Over 48.5. It's going to be a high-scoring Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers, if he's up to snuff, he can tear apart this Detroit defense. He is undefeated on Monday Night Football, and he has never lost to the Lions in a primetime game or a Thanksgiving game in the years that he's been playing, and he's been playing a long time. Jared Goff, definitely a good fit for the Detroit Lions. He will move that ball around. They've got a good running game with DeAndre Swift. I see offense in this game. Over 48.5 for the Detroit Lions. Don't forget the underdogs are 9-6 and 12-4 in week 1, so 21-10. Do you like the 11.5? Do you like the 11.5 for Detroit? Let me know on our podcasting sites. Send us an email at mtmarpodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter at mtmarpodcast. You can find Charlie O and myself, Nick Robinson, on Facebook and Instagram. We also have a Make the Money and Run Facebook group page. Over 250 members now. Thanks to everybody for joining the group. And we have a page as well, too, for Make the Money and Run podcast. Hit us up with any questions. Contact us there as well. I want to see how everybody's doing with the start of football season on their wagering side as well. The Lions and the Packers tonight for Monday Night Football. We've got Pirates, Reds, White Sox, Tigers, Orioles, Phillies, Rangers, Yankees, Blue Jays, Rays, Cardinals, Brewers, Astros, Angels, Mariners, Athletics, Braves, D-backs. All pennant race implications, maybe not so much for a division, but definitely for the wild card for both the National League and the American League as we wind down to the last 13 days of Major League Baseball. Most teams anywhere between 10 to 12 games left. The Giants and Dodgers will open up their respective series on the road. The Giants will be in San Diego for 3, and then the Dodgers will be in Colorado for 3 as well. All right, don't forget to join us on Thursday at noon Eastern. Charlie O will be back with me on Thursday, noon Eastern. Friday at 9:30 Pacific, 12:30 Eastern. We'll have our Friday baseball show for a half an hour, and then we'll go into our Friday football show, which will include intern Nick Robinson and his unique angles on player props and wagering for Friday football for the weekend for NCAA and NFL. We're on Facebook and YouTube Live. Download and subscribe if you miss any of the live broadcasts, and rate and review anywhere you get your podcasts. We're sponsored by the Britannia Arms, Silicon Valley's longest-serving British pub and restaurant, celebrating 40 years of the best food and drink. Check them out. BritanniaArmsDeanza.com, 408-252-7262. And don't forget to check our social media posts out every day by 6 Eastern during the week. 6 Eastern, 3 o'clock on the West Coast at VParty Sports, VParty Sports on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook page, Vasu Vada Party, MTMAR Podcast. Also for Twitter, MTMARpodcast@gmail.com. Send us an email. Facebook and Instagram for all of us as well, too. Check us out. Send us comments. Let us know. And on the weekends, we go at 11 Eastern for all the college football day. And on Sundays, we go at noon Eastern, 9 o'clock, an hour before NFL games start on Sunday. All right. For my host, Charlie O, my co-host, Charlie O, who is on assignment, we will be back on Thursday at noon Eastern. Also for Nick Robinson, who is hopefully studying hard at the University of Oregon. We'll check him out on Friday with his picks as well, too. I'm Vasu Vada Party, solo host for the Make the Money and Run podcast for September 20th, 2021. Don't forget to download and subscribe if you miss any of the live broadcasts. We will see you on Thursday at noon Eastern right here on Facebook and YouTube Live. Have a great afternoon. Good luck with your games and enjoy the games this week. Have a great afternoon, everybody. Talk to you soon.